My name is Jocelyn Covert. I'm a librarian with Halifax Public Libraries. We wish to begin today's session by acknowledging that we are in the Yawi. We live, work, and play on the land that belongs to the people, the First Peoples of Nova Scotia. As we seek to build a more inclusive municipality, we remember that we are all treaty people, and that those of us who are non-Indigenous each have a responsibility to acknowledge and address the centuries of injustice, suffering, and broken promises that resulted from European settlement. And I'll continue by thanking you all for joining us at the Central Library this evening. We are so delighted to welcome you and to have this opportunity to come together to experience an author as exciting and of such stature as Miss Atwood. I do have some quick business notes, of course. Please either silence your cell phones or turn them all the way off. It'll be okay, I promise. And it also asks that you refrain from flash photography. And in the unlikely event that we would need to exit the room quickly, there is an exit over here, and you can also go up to the back, to this exit here. And the washroom are also through that door and to the right. And the format for this evening will include a short reading by Miss Atwood, followed by a conversation between her and Alexander MacLeod. There will not be a book signing, but there will be books for sale in the lobby after the conversation, and we'd like to thank chapters for being here with us this evening. And we are so pleased that Alexander MacLeod is here with us this evening to chat with Miss Atwood. The son of another of our great Canadian authors, Alistair MacLeod, Alexander is a notable short story author in his own right. He has been shortlisted for the Giller Prize, he has served as a judge for the Giller, and he has won an O. Henry Award and an Atlantic Book Award. He is currently an English and Atlantic Canada Studies professor at St. Mary's University. Margaret Atwood has been my favorite author since before I was old enough to properly appreciate her writing. And one of my favorite poems, which I had read at my wedding, is by Margaret Atwood, and it's called Variations on the Word Sleep. And it ends, I would like to be the air that inhabits you for a moment only. I would like to be that unnoticed and that necessary. Margaret Atwood is as vital as air to us, as a writer, as a Canadian, as an activist, as a woman, and as a human. We are so lucky to have her to shine a light on our goodness, to call us out for our cruelties, and to bear witness in her inimitable way to our humanity. She is known for her intelligence, for her humor, her activism, her prescience, unfortunately, and of course for her incredible body of work, fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. Over the past 60 years, she's received countless honors, including the Governor General's Award, the Giller Prize, the Booker Prize. She's a Companion of the Order of Canada, and she's also apparently a palm reader. She's been acknowledged for her literary accomplishments, but also for her contributions to Canada and to the world. She's a Canadian icon, she's a literary icon. This book, The Testaments, was shortlisted for a Booker Award before it was even published. I think very few authors can claim that level of recognition or clout or assurance of exceptional quality. Before I invite our guests out, we are pleased to be able to share a trailer for a new documentary about Margaret Atwood and the Handmaid's Tale. It's called A Word After a Word After a Word is Power.
A lamp. Above, on the white ceiling, a relief ornament in the shape of a wreath and in the center of it, a blank space plastered over, like the place in a face where the eye has been taken out. There must have been a chandelier once. They've removed anything you could tie a rope to. We were living in West Berlin when the wall was coming down. I began The Handmaid's Tale in Berlin on a rented German typewriter. I was one of those teenagers who was reading Brave New World. I was reading 1984, about the time it was first published. And I had always pretty much wanted to write a dystopia, but most of them were from the point of view of men. So I thought it would be interesting to take one of those dystopic societies and flip it and see what that felt like from the point of view of a woman in it. I was carried into the woods in a pack sack when I was 6 months old. My dad was a forest entomologist. We would live in tents while he built a larger house. There was no electricity. There was 2 wood stoves. I was an early writer. I wrote comics and I wrote little stories, and I wrote my first novel when I was 7. It was about an ant. It was not a great success, but it was illustrated. And then I lost interest in writing. I wanted to be a painter. I start with handwriting because that seems, for me, to allow more of a flow from brain to hand to page. When I have about 50, 60 pages, then I can start thinking about structure. I quite frequently have a lot of crossings out and arrows that point to the back of the page. I also have marginal notes, and I can't say that my handwriting has improved any in the intervening years. It's worse than ever.
Just tuck yourself into the left for Margaret Atwood. Just here. Just tuck yourself into the left for Margaret Atwood. Anyone for Margaret Atwood? Just tuck yourself into.
There is an incredibly strong desire to meet Margaret Atwood because she's changed so many people's lives. She's also fallen into this a tragic but brilliant vein of connecting perfectly to some of the more alarming and disturbing political currents in the world, so she's like perpetually relevant.
It is my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
The inspiration for the Testaments was Trump being elected. Circumstances changed, you know. Everything we thought wasn't true anymore.
Right.
It motivated me to write it. The same way the arrival of the 80s kicked off The Handmaid's Tale, because everything started to go the other way around in the 80s.
We desperately want more from her. You know, we desperately want more from her, but not really. You know, like, you're sort of like, you know, at so much of the time, it's beautiful and it's perfect, but it's unsettling. And she's like that in life too. She'll say the thing no one else is willing to say to you. She'll tell you the hard truth you don't really want to hear.
Yes?
She has been a hugely warning force about important issues and reminded the writers that it's not just a self-expression. Writing is actually your dialogue with the world and your commitment to giving the world an image of itself that it needs. So I think that books like Handmaid's Tale, like Surfacing, like Alias Grace, remind us that the problem is inside all of us.
You're going to read this? How old are you?
7.
My goodness. Well, good luck with it.
There's definitely a feeling that this is my word to the world, so I'm going to finish saying what I have to say and do what I can to make sure that there's a legacy for literature, for feminist causes, for the environment, this is her shot at getting the message out there.
So, welcome readers and relatives. Since 23andMe, I've got even more relatives than I thought. And I knew I had a lot. And both my mom's family and my dad's family were from Nova Scotia. Oh, yeah. That's why I have all these relatives. In the audience, too. Relatives. No, I'm not going to make you stand up. I'm going to read from the Testaments. I'm going to read from chapter 1. And the Testaments has got 3 narrators. 2 of them are younger women. One of them grew up inside Gilead and has not known anything else. And the other one grew up in that great good place that you always wish to escape to. And things have gone pear-shaped in the United States, and that would be Canada. And you will be delighted to know that if you actually make it to the end of the book, there are some Nova Scotia locales in it. Because that, of course, would be one of the destinations if you're escaping by sea. Not to give away any spoilers. I'm giving you some motivation. It's a long and 1/3 of the book. So, the third narrator, on the other hand, is an older person. And we have seen that person in The Handmaid's Tale. We saw her only from the outside. So we didn't get any insights into her inner life. And that person is known as Aunt Lydia. Aunt Lydia opens the book with chapter 1, in which we find her writing a secret document from within Gilead itself. And it goes like this. Only dead people are allowed to have statues, but I've been given superiors and was far from appreciative. I thanked her with as much the rope that released the cloth drape shrouding me. It billowed to the ground, and there I stood. We don't do cheering here at Ardua Hall, but there was some behind my head in a nod. My statue is larger than life, as statues tend to be, and shows me as younger, slimmer, and in better shape than I've been for some time. I am standing straight, shoulders back, my lips curved into a firm but benevolent smile. My eyes are fixed on some cosmic point of reference, understood to represent my idealism, my unflinching commitment to duty, my determination to move forward despite all obstacles. Not that anything in the sky would be visible to my statue, placed as it is in a morose cluster of trees and shrubs beside the footpath running in front of Ardua Hall. We aunts must not be too presumptuous, even in stone. Clutching my left hand is a girl of 7 or 8, gazing up at me with trusting eyes. My right hand rests on the head of a woman crouched at my side, her hair veiled, her eyes upturned, in an expression that could be read as either craven or grateful. One of our handmaids And behind me is one of my Pearl girls, ready to set out on her missionary work. Hanging from a belt around my waist is my taser. This weapon reminds me of my failings. Had I been more effective, I would not have needed such an implement. The persuasion in my voice would have been enough. As a group of statuary, it's not a great success. Too crowded. I would have preferred more emphasis on myself. But at least I looked sane. It could well have been otherwise, as the elderly sculptress, a true believer since deceased, had a tendency to confer bulging eyes on her subjects as a sign of their pious fervor. Her bust of Aunt Helena looks rabid, that of Aunt Vidala is hyperthyroid, and that of Aunt Elizabeth appears ready to explode. At the unveiling, the sculptress was nervous. Was her rendition of me sufficiently flattering? Did I approve of it? Would I be seen to approve? I toyed with the idea of frowning as the sheet came off, but thought better of it. I am not without compassion. Very lifelike, I said. That was 9 years ago. Since then, my statue has weathered. Pigeons have decorated me. Moss has sprouted in my damper crevices. Votaries have taken to leaving offerings at my feet. Eggs for fertility, oranges to suggest the fullness of pregnancy, croissant to reference the moon. I ignore the bread stuffs. Usually they have been rained on, but pocket the oranges. Oranges are so refreshing. I write these words in my private sanctum within the library of Ardua Hall, one of the few libraries remaining after the enthusiastic book burnings that have been going on across our land. The corrupt and blood-smeared fingerprints of the past must be wiped away to create a clean space for the morally pure generation that is surely about to arrive. Such is the theory. But among these bloody fingerprints are those made by ourselves, and these can't be wiped away so easily. Over the years, I've buried a lot of bones. Now I'm inclined to dig them up again, if only for your edification, my unknown reader. If you are reading, this manuscript at least will have survived, though perhaps I'm fantasizing. Perhaps I will never have a reader. Perhaps I'll only be talking to the wall in more ways than one. That's enough inscribing for today. My hand hurts, my back aches, and my nightly cup of hot milk awaits me. I'll stash this screen in its hiding place, avoiding the surveillance cameras. I know where they are, having placed them myself. Despite such precautions, I'm aware of the risk I'm running. Writing can be dangerous. What betrayals and then what denunciations might lie in store for me? There are several within Ardua Hall who would love to get their hands on these pages. Wait, I counsel them silently. It will get worse.
Well, people are going to think we planned this, but we didn't. You can see that my first question is to go to the library. The only reason I brought it up is because we really want to welcome you to our library. This is sort of become a temple of Halifax. We're so proud of the library. We're so happy to have you here in the library. In a later scene, two of your younger characters who have never been taught to read are talking about libraries. They say, I was asking about Latin. What is Latin? Becca said it was a language of long ago that nobody spoke anymore, but people wrote more mottos in it. For instance, the motto of everything inside the volume used to be Veritas, which was Latin for truth. But they chiseled that word off and painted it over. How did you find that out? I asked. If the word is gone, it's in the Hildegard Library, she said. It's only for us ants. What's a library? It's where they keep the books. There are rooms and rooms full of them. Are they wicked? I asked. Those books. I imagined all the explosive material packed inside them. Not those I've been reading. The most dangerous ones are kept in the reading room. You've got a special permission to go in there. But you can't read the other books. They let you? I was amazed. You could just go in there and read. So this book, I'm trying to engineer these questions not to have any spoilers in them. I will say there's lots of action in this book. There's a lot of dramatic things happen, but there's also a lot in the library.
There's a lot in
the library, and I know that you have fought for libraries good and hard against the force.
Apparently I'm going to have to continue to do this.
So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the power of the library, both how the library works as a source of power in the book, and maybe how a library is powerful in the world.
Well, here you are in one. In Gilead, you would not be here. In Gilead, this building wouldn't be here. And in Gilead, if you're female, you would not be able to read, unless, of course, you were one of the select group of women who have access to knowledge. So that would be kind of it for you, sorry about that. So what function do libraries serve in our world? First of all, they're open to everybody. Second, every book that you open is like a door. So some of those doors lead to wonderful and liberating places, and others don't. There's nothing about a book that says just by being a book is necessarily a good thing. We in our society tend to believe in anti-censorship. We tend to believe that it's a tendency. We tend to believe that readers have the ability to think and make decisions, choose for themselves. That can have good effects. It can have bad effects. There's no human technology that doesn't have a good side, a bad side, and a stupid side you haven't anticipated. And I think of the internet as an example. Name anything, including fire, and it's the same in all of them. So that is part of what it means to be human. You can make decisions. So a library is a place where you make decisions. A library is a place where you have access or given access. And particularly for kids who may not have a house full of books, it's like a treasure trove. And I talked to so many people who said the library was their salvation. That's when they got the spread out, they got them out of the bad place they didn't want to be in.
Well, that's what this one has been like. I think lots of Hamiltonians would say that our libraries have been transformative. The inside and outside theme that I'm interested in just thinking about is, for all the books you've written, this one's got to feel a little weird, got to feel special to you, just because it has a strange inside-outside dynamic to it. I know when The Handmaid's Tale was written, you were very clear to say that there was nothing made up in it. Everything that was inside The Handmaid's Tale had happened outside. It had a historical precedent. It was real. It wasn't any atrocity that you were putting in there was not fictional. It was real.
There's a precedent for everything in the real world.
Yeah. But now, in this amazing, what we're seeing right now, the characters from these books are out in the real world. Like they're wandering around. Your characters are outside. They're present at protests. They have entered the real world. And I know in the series, you even got to slap one of your characters in the face.
No, on the back of the
So you did get to strike one of your characters. You knocked her on the head.
Yes, we had to film that 4 times because they said, you're not doing it hardly. And then they added a sound effect.
Yes, the sound effect.
Not everybody gets their leading lady turning around like this and saying, hit me hard. No, go on, give me a while.
Yes. So, but that is weird. That is weird when you're a character that you imagine is now out in the world, and some of these visuals of this last couple weeks must be
years.
Like just how does that feel as a writer?
Okay, it has happened to other characters from other books.
Yes.
So every Christmas there's going to be an ad featuring Scrooge.
Yes.
We all know this.
Yes.
Scrooge says, get a deal. And we all know who that person is. So this is not what Charles Dickens intended when he wrote the book. He didn't intend to have Scrooge end up, selling you long johns at 50% off in his mind. But some characters just escape from their books and they take on other lives, and you can name quite a few of them who have done that. So Don Quixote, for instance, is out there walking around. And with the Handmaids, they turned up in this iteration first in Texas. So they turned up, they were going to go and sit in the legislature while in line from line of men in dark suits looking just like a scene of the TV show, which hadn't happened yet. Signed legislation about women's bodies in which young women had participated. So they're just going to turn out there and they ordered the outfits for what they thought would do on the internet. But when they arrived, they were pink. And this will not do. So they very swiftly sewed themselves some red ones. And it is a brilliant tactic for television. It doesn't work on radio. Because there they were, they couldn't be expelled because they haven't created a disturbance. They don't say anything, they just sit there. And they can't be kicked out for dressing modestly Lord knows. So there they were on the television, and everybody could see them and to know what they meant. And this is spread thither around the world.
But that's gotta feel great to think that the image that image that came from your mind is in the world.
That is one iteration of it. There have been others. Yes, and so last year I think there was the Sexy Handmaid's Tale. That did not last very long because I did nothing but my readers took care of it. Their sponsors took care of it.
Okay, you had your moon squad.
We had the Hand Soap's Tale, which was a hand soap with a little thread out with the cap and things. I have a collection of people whose dogs have things wrong with their necks and they have those anti-straps. And they take a picture of your dog, send it to Margaret.
Yep.
That's similar. Cupcakes.
That's power.
Cupcakes are real large. I'll tell you the recipe. You make the red velvet cupcakes. And then you can use some cream cheese icing, and then you make the cap out of one of those muffins liners.
Writing this down.
And many other artifacts that were turned up. For some reason, I have a small knitted chicken. I'm not sure why. It's simple, I just haven't figured it out. And, somebody just sent me today an email that said, OMG, the Handmaid's Tale wedding. But they didn't attach the image, so I said, did you mean to attach an image to this? So I don't know what it is. I'll shortly find out.
I didn't realize this was such a rich game.
Lots of rich handicraft thing is going on. In fact, if you look at the inside, if you look at the end faces, you will see some beautiful petty point embroidery.
Beautiful.
That is real petty point embroidery. The designer petty pointed it herself. And there's symbolism to those flowers plus this little skull. We'll get to that as you make your way into the book. And somebody gave me in Florida a lovely piece of petty point like this. It was square, It had a little row of pink rabbits, and it had a little row of yellow ducks, and in between there was a point writing that said Eva, which is an ethical Franca, and they have an embroidery establishment, 100 book covers on cloth, and they sold those in aid of an organization called internationally of laws having to do with women and girls, and those were sold out of like that. But they also have a line of cashmere sweaters. You can get the one that says "Praise Be." They're out of media, but they're not in export. And one that says it's black with red, and one that says "Lolita." So I've got both of them to wear.
A whole line, yeah.
Handicraftery in aid of a worthy cause. So this goes right back to my grandmother, who was a member of a knitting group in World War I. So you started with the washcloth, and then you went on to the scarf, if you could master the washcloth. And then you went on to the hat, and then you went on, if you were really good, you could do socks and mittens. But she was a terrible knitter. She never made a washcloth.
Many of us have been there. Well, of course, when I talk
But I
about
was a good knitter. My sister is a really good knitter, just to let you know.
like, are you sweater good?
Oh yeah, it's table sweaters. And I also, I knit the layette, and that very same baby sister is now such a good knitter, so I like to feel that I sort of embedded
I think we're done with that one, yeah. Okay.
Have we got any Ravelry?
I don't know, maybe something. We had to talk about F blank CK for Hank Lydian. Because the marketing for the book is, of course, saying that this is the sequel. I'm saying the sequel of The Handmaid's Tale. But a good chunk of this becomes an interesting character for the before and after of.
We are the result of our choices.
Exactly. So I was wondering, when you think about when you were setting up the character.
At all. We don't hear about Mommy Sherlock or Daddy Sherlock. We don't know much about. He's got a brother.
He's got a brother.
That's about it. So that kind of narrative, which is action-driven and problem-driven, although we do have a sense of his character, we don't have a sense of his the building of that character. We don't see little Sherlock doing tests on the carpet at the age of 6. Do we?
No.
No. So that kind of story, you actually don't need to know much about Sherlock's childhood or indeed anything about it. But other kinds of novels that are more character-driven, you kind of do.
And in this case, I was just wondering also about how the books connect to the amazing performance by Anne Dowd.
Well, she's a very happy Anne Dowd.
Yes.
And she is also the voice of Aunt Lydia on the audiobook.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a writer, it seems it would happen very rarely where, I know you've worked on many different genres, but when you see an actress, a very talented actress, take on the role of one of their characters, and then you go back to write about that character again, is her voice or her body or her comportment, the way she does the character in your head?
More like I could see how she would do it. So I could see that this would be a treasure trove for her. And I'm pleased to provide that treasure trove because she's really good. And she's such a nice person in real life. She read for us at the launch in London. She came and did Aunt Lydia. And it was weird because she came on and was a very nice person, and then she did this thing. She became Aunt Lydia. It was creepy.
Creepy for you, even to witness.
Creepy for people watching it. like she does it. It's called acting.
Yeah, so she's one person, and then she says your words, and she's somebody else. Okay, got it. One of the things that I see in the book, which you kind of set up, is that the story is narrated by three people, one an older character and two younger characters, and there is a notion here of kind of intergenerational connection, intergenerational.
These people's stories are intertwined.
And
in a way as to how.
But I'm interested if we could think a little bit about that. One of my favorite things, and one of my favorite moments, was the day that Alice Munro won the Nobel Prize. And about 3 days later, there was a great picture of you guys clinking glasses. And as a Canadian writer and reader, I was just so proud of the two of you, thinking and kind of proud of our country that we had role models like that. We had excellent people like that. But generational solidarity is always tricky business, and I thought that this book was very smart on how younger and older people, even if they have the same broad goals, sometimes have tensions with each other. Can you talk a little bit about?
It's only been going on since ancient Greece.
I was going to say, yeah, moms. One of the banned books in the libraries is Munro, Lives of Girls and Women.
Yeah, but Alice's book.
I thought she'd be proud to be banned.
The secret cache of forbidden books. And boy, would it ever be forbidden.
Yeah, so the Lives of Girls and Women is banned in Gilead.
But Lydia's got one.
That's what it's like, the secret power in the library. Like in the secret library, we're reading Alice Munro. But the Lives of Girls and Women is a theme. I was wondering, do you think the book has a reflection on the difficulties of that kind of solidarity or the challenges that it poses?
Guess what? Women are people. Just like other people. Men are people too. I mean, they're just like people. They all get to be people. And they're not, you can't take a block of people and say everybody within the block is the same as everybody else within the block, because that's not true. So there are individual differences. There always are going to be skirmishes. There are going to be differences of opinion. There are going to be little power struggles. That is a human thing. And different cultures, however, have different ways of resolving those kinds of things. So, no, is here. Yeah. It is the way it is, and I think in some cultures it's taken for granted that a younger generation will learn from an older one. So the Japanese, for instance, they rebuild their temples at intervals, and in each rebuilding, the temple comes out the same. It's the same temple, but it's made of different materials because they're wooden. They decay, so they rebuild them. And in each of those teams of rebuilders, there's always the oldest generation who's done it twice before, the middle generation who's done it once before, and the youngest generation who's never done it before. So the youngest generation will then learn from those two and move on to be the middle generation next time. And that's how they pass it on from generation to generation. Traditional cultures do that. Because they're passing on something that is a form, like a waveform, and it goes from hand to hand, from mouth to mouth, from mouth to ear. You pass it on from person to person. That's how it happens. And what we have probably wrongly done is siloed the generations. So you always used to live in a community in which there were
youngest
Everybody.
people, less young people, people less young than that, and people least young of all. Not least young.
But people at least young of all.
Using the OLD. So that's what, and they found with, for instance, retirement homes, that people really perk up if kids come and do activities in that space. Because otherwise they're isolated. They're isolated from all of the other generations. And that's not how human beings evolved to be.
Yeah, the tension against siloing, or the desire to get rid of those silos, and I did find that when I was in training, the idea that people are moving through, you're just moving through, you were at this stage, and now you're at this stage, and now you're at this stage. I do want to talk a little bit about the crazy action of this book. This, I think of any, this book is full of
People move around a lot.
People move around a lot. People move around a lot. There's a lot of border crossing. There's very quick-paced action scenes. Did you feel like more excited as you were writing this book? Does this book have pace when you were writing it? Did it feel fast?
Long pause. Did it feel fast to write?
I mean,
no.
Yeah.
No, it did not feel fast to write. It felt, how should we put it? I have to throw out a lot.
That's tough.
You ever heard of that?
I have. I'm familiar.
Yeah, well, I think it's encouraging to younger writers.
To tell them to throw it away?
No, it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
It's okay to actually revise and edit. That's okay.
Well, I think that the plot is like everything moving ever more in Nova Scotian word.
Yes, it does move towards Nova Scotia.
So obviously.
You know, you're in once you're over the Bay of Fundy there, you're basically you're in a long history of smuggling. And so are you when you're in PEI, and so are you when you're so during Prohibition, for instance, San here in Miquelon was a great big liquor dump. And people with their little fishing boats would go and blow it out there and sail into those long estuaries in Maine. A very good dumping place.
Yep.
And that coast was also during antebellum times. Escaping were moved out from there. Bangor, Maine was a hotbed of that. And it's no accident that's why it's in Handmaid's Tale and why it's in this book. And Campobello Island in New Brunswick has a long history of smuggling.
Yeah. As soon as I saw this going there, this is where we're headed. Yeah.
That's what they were doing. And so during the American Revolution, that was a hotbed of normally escaped people smuggling things back into the States.
I think maybe lots of your readers would be interested in how the book has been responded to, because you've been on a whirlwind global tour the last several weeks. You've been in the States, you've been in England, you've been in Canada. How do you feel that different audiences react to the book differently? And do you feel that maybe smug Canadians don't feel the critique as much as Americans would feel the critique, because in Canada, not spoiling it, but Canada is not Gilead in this.
No, it's not Gilead in this book, but it's under pressure, of course. So it is under the kind of pressure that you would just see a person we will not name serving on this country that begins with a U.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Basically, if you're big and have a lot of money and a bigger army than the other person, you're going to be putting pressure. So Canada Canada is not Gilead, but Canada is under pressure to do something about the Mayday underground that's operating from Canada. Of course, they would be under pressure to do that. And they would do what small countries usually do under those circumstances. Yes, we're working really hard at it. That's what they say. So,
in the book and in the real world.
in the real world, so it's called political expediency. And that goes on a lot between smaller countries and larger countries. But meanwhile, there are a lot of Gileadic refugees in Canada, and they too would be under a certain amount of pressure both ways. There would be some people who wouldn't want them there. So there are some demonstrations saying things like go home, etc.
Yeah. The Pearl Girls and their missionary work. Yeah, that was, I thought, expertly handled, because what is their mission? Their mission is political and religious.
Well, they're recruiting people for Gilead, and that's what missionaries do. They recruit people for their outfit, whatever it may be. And their appeal is particularly to young women badly served by this wonderful country. Yeah, so people who might be on the street, people who might find it appealing to have somebody say, we'll take care of you, we love you, you will have 3 square meals a day, and a roof over your head. That can sound quite appealing if you don't have those things. So they're recruiting, but as missionaries have quite frequently done, they're also information gathering.
I think clothing is really important in those scenes. There's real dress up going on.
Clothing is important in the world.
Yes, but in those scenes, there's, again, not so many, but there's people who have to dress the right way. Let's just say they have to dress the right way to look the part. And again, the icons of the book are all about dress as a kind of interface with the world. If there's an internal person who puts on these clothes, takes on that social meaning.
That's not new news. It's been going on for a very long time. I just found another. I put these things out in this day and age. I print them out and keep them in case anybody says to me, this is too far-fetched. I can work it out. So another instance, it had to do with long, pointy shoes in medieval times. So they made an ordinance as to who could wear the longest and pointiest shoes. So the more of an aristocrat you were, the pointier and longer your shoes could be.
Yes.
So aristocrats really pointy, middle class, more like this, and if you were a peasant, you didn't get much.
No point at all.
Point at all. Stubby.
Yeah. Just a little bit more on that. When people are trying to pass in the Testaments, they change their clothes and just hope for the best, right? Hope that you can wear these clothes and your true self might not be discovered in
Well, I think that's just like real life, don't you think?
Yep.
Not getting any pushback from you.
No, I think, but I really find it interesting that of all the dramatic, I think readers would find it too, all the dramatic scenes, all the dramatic rituals, everything that, if you read The Handmaid's Tale in the 80s, all the scenes that have been drilled into your head, they all kind of got turned into the clothes. Like it's like the clothes became the sign or the signifier.
It's the excellent design going on in the TV show.
I believe that's helpful.
Yes, she did a very good job. Her name is Anne Crabtree. She considered 50 Shades of Red before.
Is that the first time we've done 50 Shades of Red?
It really actually was that's why it looks so extremely lush and beautiful. She did just an amazing job of it. So, yeah, you do remember the clothes. Just as you remember, for instance, movies about Elizabeth I, you remember the clothes. They're very striking. But what else can I say about it? The totalitarianisms are big on uniforms. Yeah.
And that's amazing.
And it's not that other cultures have not used clothes as signifiers, because they have a lot. So if you go back to the Code of Hammurabi 4,000 years ago, one of the interesting things about it is that veils were for aristocratic women only. And if you were caught wearing a veil and you were not that person, the penalty was death. Because you were pretending to be somebody that you had no right to pretend to be. So this stuff goes back pretty far.
Back to Aunt Lydia for a second. When you were considering her past life, what she would have done in the past, she has a role that's, she's a decision maker in her previous life, and she becomes a decision maker in Gilead. But there are moments where she is tested.
Okay, yeah, all right. So how do totalitarianisms recruit people? So one of the things that has always interested me in real ones in history is how did the people who got leadership positions in those regimes, how did they get there? So were they true believers? Some were. Were they opportunists? Quite a lot. They thought, well, this is the winning side, I'm going it. Were they afraid? Also quite a lot. If I'm not on the winning side, I'm on the losing side. So people say, if you're not with me, you're against me. The clear threat is, if you're against me, I will destroy you. So along the line, and I suppose one of my models for it was a book called Mephisto, and it's by Klaus Mann, and it's the story of an actor who starts moving out through the Hitler regime, and the people he has to destroy and blow off and to throw into the bus on his way up the ladder. They made a very good movie of it, also called Mephisto. His key role is Mephistopheles in Faust. Yeah, it's a very interesting book, but it shows the process of the decisions he makes. Do I act loyally towards my friend, or do I destroy my friend in order to move up the ladder? So with him it's opportunism. But there are other people for whom it's a mixture of opportunism and fear. And I was also reading this recently, this wonderful biography of Thomas Cromwell, Henchman to Henry VIII. It was just come out last year, I think. And he had a secret agenda too. He was one of these people with a secret agenda. He was an evangelical, which would have gone tried at the stake in Henry had known. So how do you live within a regime within which one false step is going to have your head coming off? So carefully, but also very much with an eye to, in that lady's position, gathering influence. So she could never have overt power. She could never be part of the governing council. She could never be one of the top people. She's never going to be on TV making speeches. But because she has access to knowledge and information, she also has access to influence, like J. Edgar Hoover, one of my models, who collected dirt on people. And so did Thomas Cromwell. That's part of where they got their power within the regime.
Well, that's what makes all her work in the archive so interesting. She is purposely gathering. She has her cameras. She does.
She knows who did what to whom.
looking to find.
And she keeps that knowledge and uses it.
One thing, we have not mentioned any real countries or any real leaders of those countries at all.
Well, why don't we just come up with it?
There is another country in the real world which is currently, as we speak, tossing the word treason and whistleblower around like every day, every minute. Is a person telling the truth who has collected information an agent of goodness, or are they treasons? And when I was reading this, I had the exact same experience I had when I read your book on debt, Payback. It came out, the book was there, I don't know if you read Payback. Payback came out like massive lectures on...
Came out in October 2008, just as the big financial meltdown was happening.
So
everybody thought I knew something.
But this is what we appreciate from great writers, I think, is that this book was obviously written before this news hit, and yet it is timely. Like the reflection you have in it, this is picture that we've been thinking about over the year. But I am interested in what you think about treasonous whistleblowers.
Two different things. So, what is your loyalty to in the United States? Your loyalty is supposed to be to the Constitution. That should be your first loyalty. So, is it treasonous to reveal a crime against the Constitution? I would say it is not. So that's my view on that. If you're just, so what dictators do is they substitute loyalty to a system of government for loyalty to themselves. So they take the position of an absolute monarch. That is the position that they wish to be in. And they say basically, the state is me.
You're loyal to me.
And if you're loyal to me, that is the only loyalty that I'm interested in, says they. And that's pretty much what he's done by tossing everybody out of his administration that was standing up to that idea.
They become treasonous for being disloyal.
To an individual.
Treasonous to the state for being disloyal to an individual.
Yeah, because what he's saying is, I am America, America is me, and there's nothing else there. There's no laws, no constitution, just me. So you may have known people like this in your life, but they're not the president of the largest non-capital country in the world. Which means that the largest, Canada's bigger. Space-wise.
They're giving me these signs to start wrapping this up. So I just want to spend the last 2 minutes asking you about your life's work, your family's life's work on behalf of writers. Your work for PEN, your work for the Writers Union of Canada, the commitment you made not just in your writing, but to making sure that writers' voices are free, which is a big consideration here. First, personally, I just want to thank you again for all that work, because that is not glamorous work. People, maybe you don't see it, but all the work for PEN and all the work for the Writers Union is important to us as a nation. But can you talk a little bit about your commitment to writers and their freedom?
Okay, so this was something Graham and I did together, and he basically, if it had not been for him, there wouldn't be Writers Union, there wouldn't be a Writers Trust. It would not exist. So that came from him. I always backed him up on those. PEN was more made to begin with, myself and Eugene Benson did it. To begin with, when there was a PEN in Montreal, and it decided decided to split it into, there wasn't anybody outside of Montreal to do anything about it. And this is going back to the 80s now. And they divided in two, but there were so few English Anglophones in Montreal at that time that they said we have to build it out and make it Pan-Canadian, right? And that's an idea. So they came to me, and I thought they already had an organization. I was in Europe when they asked me to do this. I came back and found out that they didn't have any members outside of Montreal. They didn't have any money. So we started it with some postage stamps, and we used to have the meetings around the dining room table. And our first thing was to make people aware of what PEN did. So I had been involved in Amnesty. I had been in Amnesty in the 70s, and PEN was like Amnesty, only it was about writers. Okay, so the first thing was building it out, getting members across the country, and our main interest was writers in prison and freedom of speech. So I said, if it's just going to be a tea party, I'm not interested. This was a time when we had had the Argentinian generals, we had had Pinochet in Chile, we had seen these things happening. And artists were always the first targets because they're easy to kick off and you want to silence their voices. So getting writers out of prison, that was a big part of that work. So in about 4 years, it was me for 2 years, it was Timothy Billy for 1, and then it was Graham for 2. And Graham was there during the fatwa. And he was the only person in Canada who was speaking out in public and actually meeting with people who said they wanted to kill Salman Rushdie. He was the only person, no politician, no union leader, no church person. They were all on the sidelines saying, good work, way to go, to Graham. He was noteworthy in that respect. So that was an interesting moment. We realized how easy it is to scare people. You know? So what else can I say? These organizations have gone on. But the writers did, we started it because there were no agents in this country. There was nobody who could tell you what it is you were supposed to be getting paid for your book. We didn't have any access to comparative contracts. We didn't know what was supposed to be in a contract. People in other countries had agents, but we didn't when we started the union. So it was a real union. We were there to
improve working conditions.
And improve working conditions, exactly. So we were not, we were not making judgments about the quality of people's work. That's not what it was for. It was for improving things and making them fairer on the financial end. So it's gone on to do other things. We've had a horrible struggle with the copyright